Hello, good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Stephen George. A very good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 18th of August 2013 and we're still here. Remember last week we said about the 17th, we had this lady called Patty Brassard, I believe her name is, ex-NASA, talking about things going to happen. Well, the 17th was supposed to be the day when it was kind of going to kick off and nothing's happened, so we're still here. Fantastic. But she did say it will be between the 17th of August and the 26th of September, so we'll kind of keep an eye out for that just in case.
We're here in body anyway.
My
mind is elsewhere.
Okay.
In the gutter.
Communication channel, Steve.
Yes, okay, we have Mary lined up. Mary, how can people communicate with us this evening?
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Thanks very much, Mary. Yes, you can log on to the OYM chat room and you can post any questions you may have for a guest this evening in the chat room. If you go to oymradio.com, in the top left-hand corner, you will see live chat. You can log in there with your real name or a pseudonym, and that's where you can post questions. That's the place to be. And if you want to give us a shout on the telephone, as Mary said, it's 04692711212. If you're ringing in from outside Republic of Ireland, put a 00353 in front of that. Alan.
Cheers, Steve. Now, our guest on the show tonight is a journalist, Abby Martin from, you probably know the actual news channels, Russia Today, and she does a program on there called Breaking the Set, which is fantastic information. Just gets it's straight to the point and gets the information out there. We'll be bringing Abby on in a few minutes. But as usual, we just go a few things that happen during the week, we go through them. Now, just a reminder, obviously with donations to the radio station, it's a big help. If you don't have any money, obviously, click on the ads. If you like an ad, click on the ad. And we have an online shop as well, donations from our guests as well. So if anything on the shop interests you, by all means, pick one of them and we'll send it out to you. But starting off with things that happen during the week. Now, everybody knows about the credit union. Years ago we called the credit union the poor man's bank, and it was set up for the local community. Well, it looks like that's all changed now, because I was down there during the week, and I don't know whether anybody has been down recently, but the central bank have now stuck their nose in, and it doesn't matter how much money you want to get a loan of. You have to fill everything out in triplicate, and the only thing they're not asking you for is the DNA and your blood group. It's just gone mad, and nobody seems to be, worried about this. I mean, the credit union was always set up for the local community, by the local community, to help the local community. But yet now, if you go down, it's all rules and regulations by the central bank. So I said to the guy, well, hang on a minute. The bankers were the ones that caused the problem. Why are the local community getting penalised? And why is the credit union getting involved with the central bank when it's supposed to be a community, association? It's supposed to be a community, like a banking, credit system. So, needless to say, he put his hands in the air and said, oh, well, what can you do? The apathy kicks in. And I said, well, I'll tell you what you could do. You could get together with your management team and go to the head office of credit union and say, look, the central bank's getting involved, the bankers are getting involved, we don't like this, it's affecting the local community, we want to opt out of any rules and regulations and terms and conditions by the central bank. That's what they could do, but guess what? It's hands in the air, what can I do? It's not my job sort and everything else. So, if you are planning to go down to credit union, be prepared to fill out forms with everything on it. And by the way, which Steve said to me anyway, he said that they'd also ask you for a letter from your bank to say that you haven't defaulted on your mortgage. Because if you have defaulted on your mortgage, they won't give you money straight away. So it's just the credit union now is controlled by the central bank. It's not the credit union. They might as well call it the credit union bank. What do you think, Steve?
I was just thinking that we need to have a little jingle, and it's going to be called Alan's Soapbox Moment.
The soapbox has come out.
Yeah.
Well,
I think you're right. I mean, yeah, I've noticed it as well. I'm a member of the same credit union as Alan is, and I've been living at the bottom of Walton's Mountain for about 11 years, And yes, initially when I joined, if you wanted a lend of a couple of shillings or a few washers, for whatever reason, you went in and there was a one-page application form. You put your membership number on it, and what the purpose of the loan, and it was all very laid back and relaxed. You could pretty much, you could have a X amount of savings, and they would give you, I think it was up to three times your savings, and there was no problem. If you wanted a little bit more, there was a nod and a wink, and there was no issues. You paid the money back, and then the game continued. But I have noticed over the years that the one-page application form has now turned into a 4-page application form, and you must fill in all 4 sides. And yeah, new terms and conditions have come into play. I think we did hear about 2 years ago that there was something on the horizon for credit unions because they were doing better than the banks. And our local credit union, I think Alan did go down. He asked them, were they aware of this thing on the horizon? They said they were, but that they would not be. They had decided not to be a part of it. But it seems 2 years down the line that has all changed. So yeah, they've kind of gone from being your local friendly credit union to just another arm of a bank.
I know.
That's it.
It's just gone downhill. So, recommendation: don't go to the credit union. I don't know what you can do otherwise. I don't know. Don't go to a loan shark either. Bad idea to do that. Okay, let's move on. Right, Steve, do you want to say something?
How did you guess? I don't know. I was actually wondering when you said you were down talking to the guy behind the desk in the credit union, and he threw his hands up in the air. I wonder, anyone else who was in the premises at that time, did they think, "Oh, sugar, your man has a gun"?
No, lucky enough, we're in a private room, just the two of us. All right, just the two of us.
Yeah, Crown Copyright. I was actually just mulling that one over on the way up there. Any update? No, I've actually checked. My wages goes through online, and I actually checked it there yesterday just to make sure that everything was still as it should be, and nothing has been changed. I did have I won't say a meeting, but I did have a kind of an informal chat with the boss during the week. The whole revenue issue didn't come up, so I wasn't going to bring it up. But as you know, I did fill out the letter. I did print off and fill out the suggested letter from Attack the Tax, just in case your employer does kind of threaten you with the revenue. And I filled that in. I sent it to the boss, and I CC'd it via email to all other interested parties, i.e. the revenue. I haven't heard anything back yet, so there's no real update at this moment. But if it changes, you'll be the first to know.
Fantastic. Okay, just a quick mention that I was flicking around as I do, and I came across the Showcase channel. And on the Showcase channel was the TNS/MSI radio was on the Showcase channel with Vin, Harry, and Ben Gilroy was on it. And it was obviously something that Vin and everybody else did on MSI. And I'll have to say, it was very good information. And good things going on there. I'll have to talk to Vin about how we can go ahead and organise something like that. But it was very good, very pleasant surprise to see it on TV. I have to say, very good. So well done, Vin, and the rest of the people involved in that on MSI Radio. But how's your week, Steve?
My week's been fine. It's just the usual, We've had some good weather. No, we haven't. We have mostly rain, but no. How was my week? I don't have that much to report, really, because I know we want to get Abby on as soon as we possibly can and maximise our time with Abby. But just one thing that I heard during the week, and I know times are tough and everyone's kind of suffering with austerity and all this sort of stuff, and the government are dipping into your pockets and water meters on the way and all this doom and gloom. And my wife told me a story that one of a girl that she knows was shopping in a local supermarket. I think it was the local Aldi. It may be Aldi, it may be Lidl. I'm always getting those two mixed up. When she finished her shopping, she put her two children in the car, put the shopping in the car, and went over to put the trolley back. But when she put the trolley back and turned to walk to her car, there was two lads running away from the car with her handbag and a jacket belonged to one of the children. The children were obviously distraught and screaming. Of course, the woman was upset because everything was in her handbag. I mean, I think we all know what's in a woman's handbag. Everything, her life is in the handbag. So she called the local guard station here, which wouldn't be too far away from where she was. In fact, it will be a couple of miles at most. But she called the local guards, and it took them an hour and a half. That's 90 minutes to get to her. Now, maybe they were busy, I don't know, but it took them an hour and a half to get there. And, obviously by that time, whatever could have been done, whatever should have been done couldn't, because it was just way too late. So they didn't do much. But as I said to my wife, there's no real revenue involved. They can't if they come to your aid or assistance. And I'm not saying they're bad people, the guards, and I'm not saying like that they're corrupt or anything. But if it had been a situation where they could have got there and issued a notice or a fine or penalty points or something, I reckon they may have arrived a little quicker. But coming to the aid of a woman who's just been mugged or robbed, there's no money in that. So there's no they're not going to get a kickback out of it. Now, I suppose I shouldn't be saying that, because that kind of gives an impression that the guards are kind of sitting around scratching their backsides just waiting for something to do that will bring in revenue. But I'm not saying that. It's just it was a sad situation, and I thought under the circumstances, with the amount of guards that are out there, because they're setting up not roadblocks, but there's always a checkpoint somewhere checking for your road tax or checking for your NCT certificate, or just a general, we just want to stop you to see if you've been drinking, and we'll have a walk around your car and see if we can get you for something.
Easy money,
yeah, something that'll bring in some revenue. But I thought that was kind of a sad story. And actually, have you noticed the amount of, the way you see these speed cameras? We have these mobile speed cameras here in Ireland. It's a van, and it's a van, and basically the idea of this van is to park in a location where there have been serious traffic accidents where people have been killed, and their job is to park there and be a warning to motorists to slow down. Well, that's what the ad says. They're running a campaign on the TV at the moment. But anyone who's ever seen them, they're never actually where you can see them. They're always hidden somewhere in a dip or a ditch or in behind a tree or something. And it's like it's like entrapment. But anyway, that's just. I'll skip that one. I'm not going to get down the road. But they're supposed to be there to save lives. But it seems, when you look at it objectively, they're just there to bring in revenue. Anyway, rant over. Sorry about that. How was your week?
Rant over. Do you want to lend my soapbox?
No, it doesn't look that comfortable.
Okay.
I'll stay in the chair. Okay,
just something I just came across on Irish Homeowners Unite on Facebook. It says, Facebook message here, Laura McCormack is to let us know that she set up a petition to have an investigation into the banking scandal in Ireland. She has advised us that the investigation will be headed up by Eva Joly, the Norwegian-French investigator who led Europe's biggest ever fraud investigation into bribery and corruption at oil group Elf Aquitaine. Eva was also involved in the criminal investigations in Iceland. So she's been asked to get involved in Ireland. Boy, she's going to be kept busy, I'll tell you that. But so that's really the news. As I say, we want to get Abby on to maximise the time and go through loads of bits and pieces. So now, before we bring Abby on, I'd just like to say Abby is an artist, activist, citizen journalist, and the information that Abby brings to Russia today with her programme Breaking the Set is just fantastic. I mean, there's been times I've been watching Breaking the Set and I thought, that's exactly what we want to say. That's exactly what we want to get out. So, between you and me, Steve, if I was single, I'd be marrying her.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's only between you and me, alright?
Yeah. And then she'd see it and she'd run them away.
Voices for radio.
But
Voices for radio.
I have to say, Alan has watched Abby Martin on TV with a hanky in his hand. He has shed a tear.
I have. Okay. Good evening, Abby. How are you doing?
Well, thank you for that glowing introduction. I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. Abby, before we get into the Russia Today and all that side of things, we have come across, and I don't know whether you'll agree with us on this, but it seems to be, for some reason, and this is not a sexist statement in any way, but it seems to be the majority of men who are more open to what's going on than women. And is that something that you've seen? Have you come across that yourself?
In what regard? You mean in like the more hardcore kind of activism circles, or just in terms of watching alternative news?
Well, having a look at what you talk about, I mean, you're obviously fully aware, and what we'd like to do is find out from yourself how you opened up to this. How did you come across that? So I suppose let's start off with that. When did the penny drop for you and you realised something was going on?
Well, I'd always grown up in a political family. My grandpa, I remember him banging on the dinner table talking about the Democratic Party, how it was, the best party, et cetera, and we were, my mom loved Clinton. But when I was in high school and 9/11 happened, and my ex-boyfriend at the time in high school joined the military to fight Arabs and kill terrorists, and I went to college and started learning about globalization and learning about what the hell this country's been doing to the rest of the world for the last century, and kind of the corporate control and takeover of the third world, and I was just like, wow, this is really messed up. And at the same time that I was learning all of this, the media was kind of shifting their focus from Afghanistan onto Iraq. And I thought that was really strange that all of a sudden the media narrative had switched to a completely different sovereign nation that had done absolutely nothing to this country and was talking about bombing them and taking out Saddam Hussein. And so I thought something was very strong, but I was still convinced that it was just the Bush administration somehow manipulating the narrative and pushing out this fear-mongering so they can get into another war, and I still blamed Bush. But then when the 2004 elections happened, I realized that both parties were complicit. Kerry took a dive. It was very obvious. And that something was very inherently wrong with the entire system, the two-party system, and the whole establishment at large. And this was kind of amplified by Nancy Pelosi, who was the Speaker of the House at the time, saying that impeachment was off the table because it would divide the people too much. It's like, no, these people committed war crimes. They need to be impeached. We need to restore credibility and accountability within this country. Otherwise, what's the point? So that was my big wake-up moment.
Wow. And when you had this kind of wake-up moment and you start talking to friends and family, did they kind of look at you and go, Abby, what, keep taking the tablets? Bush is a great guy, and so is Kerry. And, because what we see over here in Europe is all these kind of Democrats and the Republicans and everybody flag-waving and, isn't Bush fantastic? And, and we think, man, how can he be that so controlled? I mean, did your family and friends, when you start waking up and start talking about what you found out, did they think, Abby's taking too much of the sauce?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, then I started to get into 9/11 truth and finding out all these anomalies that happened with 9/11, which was the event, of course, uses the premise of the whole neocon agenda. So, of course, I lost a lot of friends. My uncle still won't talk to me, because I was bringing this up at family gatherings. So there was a period of my life where I didn't understand how to channel my anger, my confusion, what was going on, what I was learning that I felt like was 100% true that the mainstream media wouldn't touch, that even some establishment liberals and people that I respected at the time wouldn't touch. And I thought I was going crazy, but until you start finding kind of this network of awake, conscious citizens who can see past this dichotomous thing that's pushed down our throats, the divide and conquer strategy where you have to belong to a team or a party in order to have these sort of political beliefs and act on them. So, yeah, it was a very hard time for me, but starting to channel that through then media, where I realized, this is being censored, but the media is really at fault for censoring not just this, but pretty much a message that anyone wants to tell. So I started to get into media activism. But going back to your original statement about women not being more involved, it is true. A lot of the activism that I've been involved in, I started off as an anti-war activist, then 9/11 truth activist, then a media activist, and now leading me to where I am today. But I have noticed that throughout my the last decade of activism that there have been less women involved, and I don't know what that is. I think it's the more ballsy, gung-ho attitude that comes along with being a male, almost, and kind of, and I hate to even perpetuate those stereotypes, but I really don't know. Because being a female myself, it's never even been a question. So I can't really speak for other females of why they haven't really stepped up to the plate. But it is a strange thing.
Yeah, because, there's a few females in my family, and I have tried talking to them about this, and, that's really nice, and then they go off and do what they have to do. And they don't realise what's coming down the line. It's like a dominoes, and, people are at different positions in the domino pile, but the dominoes are falling, and they're coming down, and they might not be at the front, but they could be at the back, but it's going to come their way soon. And unless you wake these people up, and this is what we're trying to do, when we originally, probably like yourself, I don't know, you can tell us how you did it, but when you originally wake up, like a lot of people, it's like somebody giving you a big secret, and you want to run out and tell everybody, hey, guess what's going on? And you're wondering why they're not getting it. They just look at you as if you're kind of a madman or something. So when the actual penny dropped, when that happened, did you start going out telling people about this, or what way did you approach it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and one more thing about the female thing, I was just thinking maybe because when women start to have children, it kind of becomes just about the family unit, and it's kind of like they want to protect them from, whatever else is going on, all these externalities that they can't control, so they kind of have to revert back to just the nurturing, let's take care of our children and kind of provide the better world in which we can, which is our own sphere of our lives. But when I first learned about all these horrible things, I would make stickers. I'd go out tagging streets, putting stickers and menus at restaurants and airplane booklets, and I started a meetup group trying to get people to join it. I went out to every single speaking event in town and would try to go and ask questions about what I thought were important in the Q&A and film it and put it up online. And I mean, it was a lot of individual activism, and until I started the meetup group where I started to realize that other people were doing these same things and cared about the same issues, where I really felt like I belonged to some sort of community. But at first it was very isolating, very scary, and very confusing, and I think that remains to be the case for a lot of people out kind of in more rural areas where maybe people aren't really involved in activism or care about politics in a lot of middle America, and I'm sure a lot of rural areas in Ireland and Europe too. So it was definitely hard, but I think that the thing that kept me sane was really linking up with like minds.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. It kind of, the people who aren't open up tend to move away or go off and do their own thing, and then the people who are open-minded, we have found, tend to come together and we talk to each other. Now, what we have to try and do, and we've come across this time and time again, is that certain people are at different levels on the path to knowledge. And some people know more about a certain subject and other people know more about a different kind of subject. But we all have to find common ground. But there seems to be a lot of infighting for some reason. Even in the truth movement, there seems to be a lot of infighting plus infiltration. Have you come across that, and what way do you deal with it?
Oh, my God, yeah. I mean, that's the biggest problem ever when it comes to the opposition. I mean, they've done a very good job, and we know that the establishment has infiltrated groups. This is very obvious. It's on record. This is not a conspiracy theory. They've infiltrated groups since the beginning of time, since the beginning of the agency and the beginning of kind of the resistance movement. So that's obvious. So anyone who says, oh, you're being paranoid or this and that, no, that's just complete fact. And the problem is gauging who's the infiltrator, who's the provocateur, and it breeds a lot of paranoia, a lot of distrust. It can ruin movements. I've seen it firsthand. It ruined my movement when I first started it. There was so much distrust and paranoia being bred that I eventually had to shut it down. How to deal with it is just, I mean, it's hard. I've talked to some people who they'll have been infiltrators, that they will be the main people in the movement that have moved up and have infiltrated their way up to the top. And, like, people are shocked, how could this person ever betray us? I thought that they were trustworthy. They've been in here for years. I don't know if there's any way to really avoid that. I think the biggest problem on top of that is having people just blaming everyone for being an agent and not being able to trust anyone, because that's when things really don't get done. But aside from that, I think there's so much infighting, and the establishment's they've done it so well because they've adopted the entire Nazi propaganda model, and they've put it in this country, but it's so much more sophisticated now. We're living under the guise of a democracy where we think that we have free choice. We think that we can elect our leaders, but we really can't. And with the propaganda techniques, they've preyed on the base emotions that we have, and when it comes to activism, they know exactly how to muddy the water. They can put in a couple disinformation talking points about serious issues like the fluoride thing, like we were saying before, and just completely muddle the entire conversation. And the entire term conspiracy theorist has made it so we can't even have a rational debate or dialogue about these events because they've already been demonized and we've been character assassinated before we can even begin to speak about it. So I think it's really shedding the fear of knowing that, yes, we're open to infiltration, we're open to kind of agent provocateurs infiltrating the group, but really shedding yourself of that fear and acknowledging, yes, that's a reality, but it's not going to deter us from organizing, it's not going to deter us from going out in the streets, and it sure as hell is not going to deter us from speaking up. And, the NSA stuff on top of that, I have a lot of people writing me saying, I support what you're doing, but I don't want to come out and say anything because I'm afraid I'm going to be put on a list. I'm like, look, you already are on a list. If we've learned anything, let's put it out there. Now's the time. Fear is, the only thing to fear is fear itself, and if you live in fear, then they've already won. Yeah. I don't know if that was the answer to your question. I just rambled a little bit. But.
No, that's fine. It made me laugh actually because somebody did ring me on the OYM phone, and they said, look, I'm only staying on for 5 minutes because they'll be able to track the call. And I said, look, they know you're on already. They probably knew you were going to call before you knew you were going to call. So, but stay on the line. Don't worry about it. They're not that bad, but no, I think that's the downfall with the truth movement. I think there's the infiltration, but I think there's egos involved as well. And there's people obviously in the truth movement, which we know are purely in it just because they know they can make money from it.
Absolutely.
And so this is the whole thing. This is where you have to kind of be rational and look at the information and be able to filter it and cross-reference it as much as you can, and just don't take one thing, and saying, oh, that must be true because such and such said it. Go and check it out. Find out if it's true, cross-reference it, and even then, be highly skeptical. I mean, I'm kind of an open-minded skeptic. That's what I kind of call myself. Probably Steve as well. But what we have is what myself and Steve call a fluid belief system. And the fluid belief system takes the ego out of the equation. I.e. that if somebody comes along with information, say you tell us something tonight, and we go, oh, that's interesting. We've nothing to defend. We don't have any belief system to defend. So we'll take on board what you say, and then we'll go off and check it out and all that. And if we think, yeah, that fits into what we think is right and everything else, we'll add that to our belief system. So there's no ego involved.
Yeah, that's a brilliant way to do it, man. And I think you just hit it right on the head. It's about taking the information, finding your own truth based on the information that's filtered in through various sources. And I find you're exactly right about the ego thing, because I found something really interesting. It's with the entire mainstream media culture. There's this lockstep kind of belief system in the establishment. But then once you start going down the rabbit hole, there's almost a more dangerous kind of way that you can go where you suddenly just are open and believe everything about the alternative media culture, whether it be reptilians controlling the planet or, I mean anything. And it's really, there's like no distinction between what's a crazy conspiracy theory that's completely unfounded and based on nothing, and what's a legitimate one that is based on fact. And I found that, if I'm critical of some things that the alternative media movement is throwing out there that I find are based not on hard evidence, which I feel like is crucial in order to explore these topics, then I get criticized. And I've actually got a lot of people turned on me because I've said things that I don't agree with. And they're like, oh, how could you say that that conspiracy theorists are this way, and that people who question this are dumb, and then you turn around and say that the conspiracy theories are a pejorative label and that you should question everything. I'm like, no, you should question everything, but you also need to question things if they're based on something. I mean, you can't just go out there and have completely unfounded speculative theories that you're shouting from the rooftops after every single hurricane or shooting or anything like this. I mean, that ultimately does more damage to legitimate truth-seeking. And I guess that's the distinction that I find the most curious, that people can't dispel between those two waves of thought. And I think that that's a very destructive path.
I think we kind of take on the Aristotle quote of being able to entertain a thought without accepting it. I mean, if you can sit down with a group of people and really open your mind, about a subject matter and talk about it, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to agree to it. But having an open mind to be able to even to be able to sit down and talk about it, to me, is a great way of doing it. Somebody might come out and say, we know the grassroots, what's kind of going on roughly with the truth movement, but there are other kind of things that are going on. Like, we have a guest on next week now. We're going to be talking about the pole shift and everything else. Now, the thing is that scientists are saying that something is happening in the universe based on scientific fact, not hearsay, not, going off on a tangent and getting information from other sources, but scientific fact and information. So, this is why we have a kind of interest in that, but there's so many areas that you can go down this rabbit hole, that's the thing. And we could go off and spend another couple of hours doing that, but what I want to find out from you is, where was the jump for you into Russia Today and getting the program, and then, you saying to the production team or saying to the management, look, this is what I want to talk about, and they say to you, yeah, okay, or no, you can't really talk about that. Tell us how you moved into Russia Today and how that all came about.
So going from my media activism, which I started kind of a proto-RT with a group of friends where we were producing our own multimedia reports and kind of memorizing our entire scripts and reciting them in front of the camera, doing Man on the Streets. And that dissolved because of lack of funding, unfortunately. But then I started my own media organization called Media Roots, which was trying to kind of have that same idea, cultivating the same grassroots exploration of these same investigative topics that I cover on the show now. So I had the basis of kind of the hundreds of articles that I've produced or written or just editorialized, and this was a multimedia platform that I'd already had. And when the Occupy Oakland stuff was going down, it was in my backyard, and I was covering that, and it was very brutal. And RT, Russia Today, was there covering Occupy extensively. They actually got an Emmy nomination for their Occupy coverage. And so I saw them there frequently. I was on a couple times. I was kind of like the liaison for the Oakland area for RT. And then they offered me an anchor position. And I went to D.C. and I thought, my God, I never want to leave in D.C. It sounds like a horrible place to live, like in the middle of just this kind of douchebaggery of lobbyists and politicians. And so I came here for the interview, not ever thinking that I would ever move here. And when I came here and met with the head honcho, he just said, look, how did I not find you earlier? You're doing exactly what we're looking for. This is what RT should be. I mean, this kind of question everything in an intelligent way, the passionate kind of enthusiasm for these issues. And I said, well, that's great. I'd like to have my own show. And they said, well, we'll hire you on with your show idea in mind, which is kind of bringing that Media Roots idea into fruition into this 30-minute show. But first I was the anchor there to try to get practice in front of the camera and kind of my cadence and all that stuff down pat. And then after 6 months of being there as an anchor, and I was so biased. I mean, I can't not be biased. Like, I never went to J school, so, like, when I anchored, it was just hilarious because it was just so, like...
But that's brilliant.
So my opinion inserted in everything. They're like, okay, you can't be an unbiased journalist, so how about we launch the show and see what happens? And I honestly, in terms of the editorial control of the show, virtually none. None of my scripts are read beforehand. I've never had anyone, of course there have been some issues that have taken it too far where they said, no, we're not interested in that. They'll never tell me you can't cover that. They'll just say, oh, that's not really, doesn't have an American angle or not. That's always the kind of way that they've said that I can't cover things. It's happened very few times. Most of the time, I'd say 99.9% of the time, I'm completely open to say and do whatever I want, write whatever I want. I've never had anyone looking over what I do. So it's pretty amazing in that respect. And I don't think I could do that anywhere else on the same level.
Do you think that, and I'm going to be a bit of a skeptic here, because people have said it to me, and when I've said that you're coming on the show, I said I'd ask the question, do you think Russia Today has its own agenda somewhere?
Well, don't you think that every single news outlet has an agenda?
Well, yeah, I agree to a certain extent. I'm just wondering what their angle would be and what agenda they're,
What I've been told, and I can't speak for the entire network because it's, I can only speak for my show, Breaking the Set, but, I mean, it's the Russian angle. It's an angle that you do not see from any sort of corporate or U.S.-backed media establishment because it's the angle of the Russian perspective, which is not necessarily the Russian agenda, or you can argue that, I guess, but it's just the angle that you won't see in terms of foreign policy and domestic matters. So that's, I mean, if you're going to say it's an agenda, I'd say, yeah, it's providing the agenda that we don't see anywhere else, or the narrative that we don't see anywhere else. And I think it's a crucial one to explore. Definitely.
I would love to see more Russia Today's. I'd love to see the mainstream media doing what you're doing. You know, it's just, as I say, it's refreshing. What you talk about, the information you come out, I just recommend everybody, and we've said it before on OYM, is to go and, if you want to listen to the news and get, you know, at least the facts. You know, I know, as you say, there's a certain angle or an agenda to a little, in just a little way, but if you really want to get the raw facts, then go to Russia Today. Forget about all the mainstream media, because they're just all controlled. Now, we have a few questions coming in by Abby. So we're going to go over to Steve, and Steve's going to throw over a few questions for you from our listeners.
Go for it.
Okay, first one off the bat, Abby, came in from Eric there a while ago when you were talking about your waking up process. And Eric wants to know, was Michael Moore influential in Abby's waking up?
That's a good question. I think when I saw Fahrenheit 9/11, Fahrenheit 9/11 was the first movie that I had seen that I saw the facts about the Saudi family being flown out when all the other planes were grounded, how Bush sat there like a moron for 7 or 9, or actually I think it was like 15 minutes in the classroom when, if there was any other terrorist attack, if there was anything that happened, the president is informed and immediately skirted away, especially if they're at a school full of children. So when I saw those things that Michael Moore brought to the forefront, I was just like, what in the hell is going on? Why would Bush sit there for so long when being told by Eric Card the nation's under attack? I mean, he's sitting there like for 20 minutes. I mean, so that's a really bizarre red flag. And then on top of that, kind of seeing all these bizarre anomalies within that movie. Of course, the movie didn't go nearly as far enough, but at least started that line of questioning, like how and why did the U.S. government never follow up with the Saudi connection? Why did we, you know, such tight allegiances with the bin Laden family? All of this foreknowledge that was just ignored. So yeah, Michael Moore's movie Fahrenheit 9/11 definitely did start me on the path to a lot of questioning about that event.
Yeah, I think we can kind of echo that as well. I mean, that movie did resonate. You know, there was a lot of things in it that it did kind of resonate with us too. And there was also the other one as well. And I'm racking my brain trying to think of it, and I'm going to have to look over to Alan now, and he's going to... What was the other one?
Bowling for Columbine and Fahrenheit 9/11.
No, the other one, nothing to do with Michael Moore. Remember the other one about 9/11?
In Plain Sight.
In Plain Sight. That was our good friend, and I can't think of his name.
That was David Von Kleist.
David Von Kleist, yeah, there was that one as well, and then there was the other one. I think there was part 1, 2, and 3.
Loose Change.
Loose Change. Thank you, Abby. Yeah, Loose Change. Oh my God. Yeah, I seen that. It was actually a girl I work with. She gave it to me a long time ago, and she says, "Here, this is something you might be interested in," and because like she kind of knew where my headspace was, and up to that point, I'd seen a little bit about 9/11, but then when I looked at that, and then that kind of opened the door, and I went on and done a lot more research. But anyway, we're getting off the questions, but yeah. That thing with Bush, you look at that and you kind of go, wow, why is he not jumping up and running for cover? Why is he not being escorted away? He's a leader of a country, for God's sake. He should be getting whisked out there saying, listen to these kids, I gotta go. Daddy has to go to work now or something.
No, he has to go to war.
He has to go to war.
It's a very peculiar thing, man, and I think that kind of shows you a lot that maybe they just knew exactly what was happening.
Was that the photo of Bush having the book upside down? Was that the same classroom?
I don't know. It probably was.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, let's give him his own library.
Yeah.
Because of it. Did you hear about that? The Bush Library in Austin?
No.
They're granting him a giant memorabilia library, and I'm like, yeah, give the guy who was reading a book upside down, like the most notorious moment of his career, a library. What a profound irony.
You know what we did, Abby? We got David Von Kleist came on the show, and he does a great impression of George Bush. So we actually did a wind-up of George Bush ringing into the show in his underground bunker. And if you go onto our YouTube channel, Open Your Mind Radio, you'll actually hear Dave Von Kleist pretending to be George Bush ordering a pizza from his dome.
The pizza sketch, that was brilliant.
Yeah, that was a brilliant sketch. Fair play to David Von Kleist. Next question, Steve.
Yeah, next question. This is kind of a two-part question. Crown Copyright says, a few people tried to get Abby kicked off Russia today when she was out and about asking questions with Luke Radowski. And then Johnny Mead says, can we ask Abby, do you reckon Luke would be someone who could be trusted?
Absolutely. I know Luke very well. He can definitely be trusted. I can't speak of all of the We Are changes since it has like hundreds of affiliate networks all over the world. So I can't speak on behalf of all of them, but I do know Luke. I know that he's a genuine person with a good heart, and he has the utmost intentions, and I can speak to that for sure. But yeah, Rand Paul, I was a huge fan of Ron Paul. I campaigned for him in 2008. And then Rand Paul comes in the mix, and I'm like, hell yeah, this guy is awesome. He's going to be like Ron Paul, taking the legacy of his father. And then he started to do some questionable things like support Israel, support all the funding for a lot of these questionable things, support the Libya invasion, and also, supporting and endorsing Mitt Romney, who had voted for the NDAA, kind of this blanket endorsement of all of his aggressive neoconservative policies. And I thought that was very strange and highly questionable. And so Luke and I had the opportunity. I had a Senate press pass, and everyone can go, if you have a Senate press pass, and question politicians in the Capitol. That's completely constitutional, legal. In fact, that's what a lot of people do. And so I went there to do that, and, he skirted around the issues. He actually completely ignored me when I was trying to question him, and I didn't really think anything of it after that. I just thought, well, he just ignored me. That's fine. About a week later, I get calls to RT from the Capitol Police on behalf of Rand Paul, trying to revoke my credentials and actually threaten to arrest me for harassment and intimidation. Because I had simply done that. And so there was this huge battle ensued where I had to go and meet with all these Capitol Police people and all the media heads at all the official networks in the Capitol. And it was a very intense moment. I was very scared. I thought that I was going to have my press credentials revoked, and I just couldn't believe that it was at the hands of Rand Paul. I thought, out of all people, you would never expect it. And, of course, since then, people think that I'm lying about it. I'm like, why would I lie about that? I liked him.
Yeah.
Like, I love Ron Paul. I like Rand Paul. I think that his drone filibuster was awesome. I would never lie about something like that. And so I think that there's this kind of adulation for the Paul family where they can't see anything wrong at all with the policies that Rand Paul is talking about. And even though he's doing a lot of good, there's still some things that we can be critical of. And it's not like taboo to just talk about these things.
I think people having the rose-tinted glasses on in a lot of cases. Abby, you're a strong woman, and that comes across, and it's great to see that. Do you have some people that you interview, or politicians or men, that are a bit kind of scared of that? They're a bit frightened of that?
Oh, yeah. Well, you do not see a lot of politicians coming on RT, especially on my show. We've reached out to everyone. So there's a lot of people who just will refuse to come on at all. But the few that I have had on, I just had on Howard Dean, which was a 2004 presidential candidate, head of the DNC for a long time. And I honestly don't think he really knew what Breaking the Set was about, because I think he was pretty shocked at some of the questions. But, you just either see them just flat out rejecting coming on at all, or if they do come on, it's very they expect a very canned interview. So, yeah, and it's amazing. I get criticisms, too, for having people like Howard Dean on. And I'm just like, would you rather me not have establishment politicians? If I can get them on the show, of course I'm going to get them on the show and confront them about things that they talk about. That's a good thing that they want to come on. And I would love more to come on. But unfortunately, they just aren't interested. And I wonder why.
Yes, I wonder why. Well, that adds to the next question. Have you had people in the Truth Movement who you've asked to come on, and they haven't come on the show for whatever reason?
No one. Actually, David Ray Griffin, I've wanted him to come on. He can't come on because of health issues. But other than that, I haven't. It's hard because you'll never really get someone to tell you, we don't want to come on because we don't like your programming. So there'll always be an excuse. So it's kind of hard to tell what people's motivations really are, but I've never really had a flat out rejection your show, no.
Yeah, well that's good, because sometimes we actually approach people in the truth movement to say, why don't you come on the show? By the way, we have done an interview with Luke. Nice guy. He came over here to do a talk, and we got him for a few minutes, about 20 minutes or so, and the interview is actually on our YouTube channel. But he was very, very tired. He was jet lagged and everything else. But we had a good chat with him nonetheless. But sometimes we approach people in the truth movement, and what we want to do is, educate people and get a guest on and give us their point of view, and that's all we want to do really. And sometimes I don't know whether it's ego, I don't know what it is, but sometimes they don't get the email or whatever, and we find that kind of strange. But I'm glad to say there's very few people that do that. The majority of people know who we are, know what we're trying to do, trying to educate people, get the information out there, and we have a moral conscience, and that's why we do it. And we're trying to do as much as we can. And it's, as I say, it's having the next step would be having the TV station, having Russia Today breaking set would be fantastic. But I'm sure we'll get there in the end. But I'll pass you over to Steve. We have another question there from one of our listeners.
Yeah, two more questions. I'll read them in the order they came in. Eric is wondering, can we ask Abby, I'm not sure if this is a word you're familiar with, however, I will say the word, it's a real Irish word, and then I will give you the definition. But it's, can you ask Abby, would she put gobshite of the week on Russia Today to name and shame a few Irish cronies? Gobshite will be the polite Irish version of a-hole.
An idiot, yeah.
Yeah.
Which ones? Yeah, I mean, and then this is the awesome thing is that I take a lot of feedback from the viewers on our Facebook page, and I do look at some YouTube comments now and again, and mostly just Twitter and Facebook. If people shout out some crazy things that are going on in politicians that you'd like to be shamed, absolutely. I definitely want to branch more out and cover more political things going on in other parts of the world. So yeah.
Brilliant. Well, we can help you with that. There's no problem with that. We have a load of gobshites over here. I'm sure they'll put the hand up for it. Right, Steve, next question.
Next question. Crown Copyright is wondering, and I'm going to add to this, he's wondering, what are your thoughts on Alex Jones? And I'm going to add on to that as well, and maybe throw David Icke in there. Now, we know, we've had experience before. We don't like asking people who come on what their thoughts are on other people, because we know that's unfair. But maybe if you maybe tell us what you think of Alex Jones, his work, or maybe David Icke's work, what they're doing.
I think I'll start with David Icke. I think that he is a profoundly inspirational person, and I've heard some lectures that he's given that have floored me and have really moved me. However, I cannot subscribe to the reptilian overlord theory and the hollow moon theory and stuff like that. So I mean, in terms of like his really far out there beliefs, I think that I can understand why people think that on like a purely energetic level. If we're looking at like the evil and how can these people perpetuate so much bad and they have to be kind of these otherworldly beings. I understand the thought process of getting there. I think that that ultimately does a little bit of damage when people are led down that path, and that's their end kind of thesis. However, I think that he's an amazing person and has done a lot of good. Same with Alex Jones. I mean, I came out on Breaking the Set, and I've gotten a lot of hate to this day because I said after Sandy Hook that Alex Jones sells fear. And I got a tremendous amount of hate for that, and I still do to this day. People do not like me because I said that, and apparently you can't criticize or have any sort of dialogue about the methods used by people in the alternative truth movement. I think Alex Jones is awesome. He helped wake me up to a lot of stuff. A lot of his documentaries, he's relentless. However, I think it ultimately does damage when you come out in the wake of every single event just to be first in your theory and immediately proclaim that every single thing is a false flag, whether it be hurricanes, the missile explosion, or in that like chemical warehouse or whatever, or just Boston bombings. I mean, even if these things are engineered by facets of the government, to say that they are immediately actually discredits people who are seeking those things later on. And so, I tend to think that Alex Jones does that, and I think that's just because that's what his viewers expect from him. Although, unfortunately, because I've said that in the past and I'm saying it now, I know that a lot of people will criticize me for it, but That's just what I think, and I think that both of those people have done a tremendous amount of good, but I think that ultimately, like, that is damaging when you declare those things right off the bat and breed kind of that paranoia that's unnecessary sometimes.
Well, that brings to a question. I agree with you on kind of, I've watched a lot of Alex Jones stuff, and there seems to be, here's loads of problems, but we don't have any solutions for you. And sometimes I have to be a bit critical on Russia Today. Sometimes I see that on Russia Today as well, where, you're reporting the news, which is fine, but what would be good is to say, well, here's the bad news, but here's what you could possibly do as well if you come across this. Have you noticed that on Russia Today? Do you offer solutions as well as showing the problem?
Well, this is also this is kind of the eternal struggle. Yes, I can say that, people have sold fear and that there's a lot of fear mongering going on, and I guess I'm guilty of it too to a certain extent. But I've tried to at least end every single interview that I do with a question: what can people do? To guests that are coming on sharing their opinion. We have a news segment coming out next season, which is called the Happy Place segment, where I'm going to try to talk about here's some inspirational piece of news of something good that's going on in the world to take you out of this dark hole that I just put you in for the last 20 minutes. So we'll be doing that, and also a call to action series that I'm launching with the second season of here's a tool that you can go act on. Here's something that you can do about this. And I think that's probably my primary criticism of the show, especially when I've criticized other people for not really providing any sort of positive, inspirational outlook of a solution on these horrible, tragic things that we're talking about all the time. So yes, I've definitely heeded that advice, and I definitely am going to incorporate that, I promise. And I know it's really exasperating and really depressing sometimes to be hearing all this news and there's nothing you can do about it, and you feel like your agency's taken away because you can't control anything. But really, ultimately, if you are being a good person and if you are doing all that you can in your own life to be that person and be that source of inspiration, that's really all we can do, and we have to trust that that is changing the world.
Yeah, well, that's the next question. Where are we now? With everything that's going on and all the information that you've been reporting on and the knowledge that you have, where is the world at the moment? What's the situation? Are we winning? Are we losing? What's your take on that?
I think that right now, I think that the world has always been kind of at a homeostasis where there's a yin and yang, there's a balance of good and bad, and it's always kind of balanced each other. And I don't know if now it seems like there's so much more bad because I'm researching the bad all day, every day, and because we have this interconnected ability to see every single thing that's going on in the world with virtue of the internet and kind of our networks that we've accumulated through people all over the world. So I don't know if it's just kind of that balance feels out of whack because we have access to every single thing now, where it kind of feels disproportionate. But ultimately, I think that good always will prevail. I think change happens extremely slowly. I think if you look over the course of human civilization, change happens really slowly. And if you look over the course of the last century, there have been profound monumental shifts. I mean, just 100 years ago, women didn't have the right to vote. So if you look at it in the terms of human history, change is happening. It's always happening for the better. How long that will take to get out of the period of bad is always anyone's guess. But I think right now we are in a significant shift for a positive future where we have the ability to really bring ourselves out of this kind of corporate oligarchy controlling the planet, where we're becoming more aware of it. We have the purchasing power. We are treated as mindless consumers, so we have to start acting with our consumer purchasing power to drive these corporations out of irrelevancy, because really that's ultimately who is controlling the policy here. Yeah, definitely. And I think, America is in a bit of a state at the moment. We've seen all the news about these, well, it's the DHS, isn't it? It's the Department of Homeland Security. And they're going in and they're raiding people's houses and they're making mistakes and there seems to be an awful... America seems to be, by what we can see in the media, a really bad place to be in now at the moment with everything that's going on. All these FEMA camps set up and... I don't know, you tell us, do you see that from where you are? You mean just the kind of the end goal for there? The end goal, yeah, basically, yeah. I do see a lot of dark trends. I see a lot of, the criminalization of dissent, the crackdowns on all the protest movements. Police just acting like militarized troops in the streets, acting with total immunity, corporations being awarded for criminality, corporations countersuing torture victims. I mean, there's a lot of horrifying things, and it's easy to become totally terrified. But the thing is, we have to really look at these things and take them in, but really have our output be more positive, because honestly, if we become terrified, our agency's taken away, and then we feel like we can't do anything, and that there's no point in doing anything because the New World Order, or whatever you want to call this group, has already won. You know, they have so much more power than us. How can you fight the biggest military in the world? The fight's over. And I've seen this kind of exasperation and defeat from a lot of people who are just like, whatever, there's nothing I can do to fix it. And honestly, that's the mentality that they'd like us to have. We still can change it. I'm talking to you right now. I still have the ability to affect change. You guys have the ability to affect change. We have the internet. It's free and open right now. This is our best tool to spread awareness, spread knowledge, and I think that that's ultimately the first step. And for people who say, you know, you never present solutions, or we're going down this kind of point of no return, we have the world at our fingertips right now. We have each other. There's millions of us around the world that know what's going on. There's millions of us that are resisting this path, this global takeover, and we can stop it. And it's really the power of the people. The establishment's scared of us. If you look at what Edward Snowden said in that little brief before he left the Russian airport, he said they're not scared of me. He said they can crush me. That's fine. He said they're scared of an informed populace demanding the constitutional republic that they were promised, and they should be, because they know that when people wake up and demand it, they have nothing. Exactly. And that's all the power in us right now.
And I think that global awakening it has, in the last probably, I mean, we go back, you know, OYM has been on the air for about 3 years. And even in that short period of time, we've seen a massive difference. And the amount of people waking up, sometimes it's a case of them having to wake up because they're just about to lose the house because of what the banks have been doing over here in Ireland and across Europe. So they're forced to wake up. But even if it's a case that, well, we have said before on the show, they don't have to know about the oligarchs or the New World Order or the Illuminati. They don't need to know about that. All they need to know is that the system is corrupt, but the politicians are screwing the system and they need to be removed. Even if they just know that and are not happy with that and they'll protest on that, that's fine. They don't need to know the bigger picture.
Yeah, and unfortunately it takes something like that for people to realize it, because right now I think a lot of people are still living relatively comfortably, even if their lives are kind of vacuous and they're just going to work, sitting in traffic, coming home and watching Fox News. They still don't see a reason to look outside of that. But really, once something like that does happen, whether or not be, you know, your debt is skyrocketing and you lose your house, or you can't pay back bills for college or the hospital, or you know, you see things like this, the NSA thing, you kind of start realizing that you are getting spied on, even though you have been a good citizen, and there's no reason for it. So I think that the consciousness is definitely shifting, and unfortunately, you're right. Unfortunately, it does take something big to happen in someone's individual lives for them to actually care about something happening outside of their lives. And I wish that weren't the case. I wish that we can extend our empathy globally and say, hey, if anything's happening that's destructive with our tax dollars, then that means I am complicit to a certain extent to this destructive policy, and so therefore I should care about it. But unfortunately, that mindset is glaringly absent.
Exactly. I mean, we do talk about the sheeple mentality, and I'm sure that's across the globe with people trying to wake them up, even down to the level that I've tried to do it locally regarding wireless technology and the dangers of wireless technology. We will have a report coming up shortly. We have about 10 minutes because I know Abby, you're very busy. But in the last 10 minutes, I'd like to kind of look at not so much solutions, but look at what's happening in a positive way. One thing we're seeing is loads and loads of people are beginning to wake up. People are getting to be informed of what's going on. News channels like yourself, Russia Today, is a massive big help to educate people what's going on. Over here we have a government party, which I kind of touched on before we went live, called DDI, Direct Democracy Ireland. And that's basically a party of the people, for the people, who are now fighting back. It's like what's happening over here, Abby, in Ireland with the government parties. Imagine the Titanic is sinking, and the mainstream government parties are arguing about where to put the deck chairs, and DDI has a life raft. DDI is putting down the life raft to say, come on, we'll get the life raft down, we get off the boat. And the other mainstream parties are just moving the deck chairs around.
Exactly.
And this is why I think DDI is the rose amongst the thorns over here. Now, I know we're a kind of a media outfit, and people say, well, you really have to sit in the fence. But, you know, we've sat in the fence so long, trying to not kind of be, select one party. But we have to say, direct democracy, which what we had in our constitution, is the way to go. It's power to the people. Now, there's two people, as I say, David Frank, who's setting up a grassroots direct democracy system over in Indiana in America, and Bill Stills is getting involved. What do you think of that idea? Is that something that you would help promote or be interested in getting involved in?
Absolutely, and I have promoted it before because I think that, I agree with you. It's like changing the deck chairs on the Titanic. It's a perfect analogy to look at how the establishment is trying to propose, quote, solutions for the horrible systemic corruption within a failed system. I think the first thing, absolutely first and foremost, is abolishing the antiquated system of the Electoral College. It's completely erroneous and means nothing. I mean, it's basically a dictatorial rule based on a two-party system that third parties will absolutely never have a chance in. So that's the first step, is completely abolishing that and having direct proportional democracy, so communities can actually feel the incentive to get involved at a local level. Because right now, what's the point? No wonder there's no third-party movement here. I mean, ultimately, people know that there's no point. It's almost just like a symbolic vote, because there's absolutely no representation at all for third parties in the government. So I think that absolutely, if we have to work within the system, which of course we always should be trying to do that, as well as working outside the system, and I think that that's the very least you can do, is support a movement like that can at least offer some sort of platform for third-party movements. Absolutely.
Definitely. Okay, Steve, you have a question for Abby?
Yes, I do. Just finishing off me typing there. Just sending replies to people on the chat. A lot of chat going on the in the chat room, Abby. A lot of good comments and positive comments coming your way. Actually, you only have one here. Crown Copyright. He reckons Abby should do an Irish special and invite on the OYM and the MSI boys. And also Ben Gilroy and a lot of others that are involved in the Irish Troop movement. He wants a special on Russia Today.
I love it. I've reached out to Clara Daly, and if I can get her on, I'd love to do a whole Irish episode where we can have her kind of speaking truth to power, and then covering that whole kind of movement of direct democracy, and then also on top of that calling out some politicians there. That would be really fun, and I'll definitely work on putting that together. Have that guy hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, and give me some recommendations for people that I can start reaching out to.
We will sort that out for you, no problem at all. I will say, however, you will have problems getting Irish politicians on. I guarantee you, right? I think this is a safe bet, Steve, isn't it? They won't go on.
You could bet, as the Americans say, you could bet the farm on it.
You could bet the farm, put the farm on it. They won't come on. And we hope they do, but if Claire and Ben want to go on with them, they tear strips off them. Because people now at the moment, people are so angry over here in Ireland. And, as I say, we're going to have Claire on the show probably in about 2 weeks' time. Excuse me. And we're going to be talking about Claire, about the situation. Claire's an independent TD. She talked about the sycophantic behaviour from our government. It's just disgusting, really, what our politicians are doing. And to get a fresh perspective and an honest and uncontrolled report from Russia Today with Irish politicians on would be just a breath of fresh air. It'd be fantastic.
Well, that's awesome. I definitely will. And I apologize for everyone on behalf of my kind of bias being an American and growing up in America, is that that's of course my primary knowledge and concern of exposing all the corruption, because I feel like America's the leading hegemon who's crushing imperialistically the entire globe. So that is my primary concern, and of course I get blindsided from the fact that every country has their own corruption and needs to have these people called out equally. So I definitely will try to branch out more and more in the second season. I appreciate that nudge.
Now that would be fantastic, because like in America, our media is controlled. The radio is controlled, the TV is controlled. The only the only kind of alternative media. Now, funny enough, I spoke to one of the politicians there probably last year, if not the year before last, and I said to him, "Oh, I'm involved in the alternative media," and he turned around and he said, "Oh, you mean the new media?" Which is brilliant to hear from a politician, because people are beginning to more and more switch off the TV, and they know that there's lies going on, and this is why, as I say, we promote Russia Today, and educate people. But Abby, I know you're stuck for time. Oh, we're going to go over one more question for you there. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Steve.
one just come in. I'll just read it out as it came in, Abby. It's from I don't recognise the name. It's not a regular to the show. But this person wants to know, how does Abby justify using violence and theft against innocent people through supporting direct democracy or other such criminal statist systems? I wouldn't have thought direct democracy was a statist system. I'm not sure.
It's kind of a loaded, bizarre question to think that supporting proportional representation is supporting... this person obviously sounds like an extreme... person who believes in abolishing all government systems, which I don't agree with. I think that's kind of a pie-in-the-sky idea, and I don't believe that supporting an element of something that can represent the citizenry equates to me supporting murderous statism. So
yeah, I think that's a kind of trolley question. I wouldn't even go there.
Right, can we finish on a positive note then?
Let's finish on a positive note.
Right, Eric says, I wish I could transplant Abby's personality into the body of a woman who looks like Abby, who happens to be my girlfriend. Best of luck, Eric.
There you go. Fantastic comments there, Abby. I think we can all agree, Abby. What you're doing on Russia Today is fantastic. I mean, I really do admire what you're doing. The information you come out with, it's just exactly what we want to say. It really, really is. And you really hit it time and time again. I've watched Breaking the News, and you've just hit it straight in the head of what we want to say on the information that we want to get out there. And I just hope more and more people tune into Russia Today, switch off the mainstream channels that are there, and go to Russia Today and tune in and listen to Breaking the Set. Max Kaiser is on there as well. Max has been on the show. Another great guy. He shoots from the hip. Brilliant information. And it's just you have great people on the show that really report and say what's going on. And we can't knock it. So, as I said, I'm going to help you. I'm going to be sending you over links now in the next couple of days of people that I think be fantastic to get on Russia Today, who need, like Claire Daly, we need to get the honest information out there. No kind of scripts, no controls by the media, no controls by the politicians over here. That would be fantastic, and definitely in the next few days we will do that. But I'm going to pass you over to Steve Abbey, and he's going to finish up and get all your details and your bits and pieces. I'd just like to say personally, thanks a lot for coming on. It's been brilliant. It's great talking to you. Enjoyed the show, and I just hope Russia Today goes on from strength to strength, and what you're doing a fantastic job on educating the people. Thanks again. Pass you over to Steve, and Steve can do the bits and pieces.
Can I have one more final word? And I just want to say thank you so much for those words of support. It really means the world to me. And I think that if people gave RT a chance and didn't just dismiss it as a propaganda network, they can actually argue the facts, that's what we need to be focusing on, is take everything in its own merit, argue the facts of what's presented, and take it from there. And I think you said that early in the conversation. You really hit it on the head. But I think that you guys are doing an amazing thing, an amazing job. This is the new media. This is the revolution right here. We need to take back the media streams. We need to take back the channels of which we tell information and share information, because that's really the most powerful tool that we have to fight back. You guys are doing it. Everyone needs to do it, though. We have all the tools available to us. There's really no excuse. And express your passion, and whatever medium that is to you, it's your duty to do that.
And thanks a lot. And while we have the tools to do it, let's use them tools as best we can and get the information out there. Steve.
Okay, there's not much for me to say. I mean, normally, Abby, at the end of the show, I just asked our guest if they can maybe give us, if they're promoting a book, or if they have a website, or any other means where people can find out more about their work. But I mean, I think they just have to tune into Russia Today, and they'll pretty much find out everything they need.
No, there's more links there.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you can go to Breaking the Set on YouTube. We have the whole show, youtube.com/breakingtheset. It's also on Hulu. If you subscribe to Hulu, you can find the show on there. It's also on RT.com, archived all of our shows on there. It's just harder to find. And also you can check out Media Roots, which is my media organization, and my art website, abbymartin.org.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Okay, Abby, just stay with us there. We'll just go to a musical break and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com, MSIRadio.com, and UnitedWeStrike.com.
Okay, and we're back. A little bit of dance hall days there. Wang Chung. Can't get enough of that song. That's one of my all-time favourites, and I hope it's one of yours. Yeah. Abby Martin.
I've just come back from the shower.
He's just back from the shower. Seriously.
I just had a cold shower.
Seriously. I mean, come on.
You know. But brilliant program, Breaking the Set. I do watch it on a regular basis, and as I say, Abby does a great job, and she doesn't pull back any punches. So if you're going to be a guest on the show, you better know your stuff, because she will give you a grilling. But fair play, I mean, brilliant information. I just recommend go over, if you've never seen Russia Today, Breaking the Set, go over there. Max Kaiser's on there as well. And they just, they shoot from the hip. It really is good information.
I do believe, I think Russia Today, and make no bones about it, they have an agenda. Of course they have an agenda. They're exposing what's going on, and okay, let's say they're picking on America. So, you can, what better way to do it? Expose what's going on over there, and then people will turn to you for the news of what's happening in their own country. But I'm sure there's a lot of things that are happening in Russia that RT won't touch. But yeah, you'll probably find on American TV channels and news channels, they'll happily report what's going on in Russia. So the Russians are probably tuning to American TV to find out what's happening in their own country. And, the likes of us here and Americans, they're tuning to Russia Today to find out exactly what's happening in their own country, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, but the thing is, when Abby talks about stuff, she really gets down to what's going on.
Yeah.
You probably won't find it on Fox News or CNBC or any of them over there. Okay, well, earlier on today, I did a pre-record with Barrie Trower, I should say, regarding if you remember last week, we had Deborah Tavares on, and Deborah sent us over a document about new technology being released by the American government. It's on the White House website, apparently. And Deborah wanted to get an opinion on basically the technology. Now, the problem is that obviously we had a look at that and we thought, this is a bit too advanced for us. So we sent it over to Barrie through the post, and Barry's had a look at that. And so I just asked Barrie on his comments on that report, and also a general heads up on the report that he's sending over to us. Now, he's just done a report, and he basically has it in the envelope. He said to me, I have it in the envelope, it's going over to you, you'll have it in the next few days. And this report, so far he said, I don't know, I forget, he said something like 100,000 people want to report already. Some fantastic number because of what information is contained in it and the dangers of Wi-Fi and the technology. Now, Barry's sending us over a copy, so what we said we'd do is we're going to digitise the actual report, and we're going to put it up on OYM for everybody to download and to read. And he said he's broken it down in a way that you can understand it from as if you were an 11-year-old. Although it's a research kind of document and information, he said a lot of people get these, they read them and think, I don't understand that. But he's written it in a way even an 11-year-old can understand. So, but we haven't got it yet, but as I say, Barry's going to send it to us. So this is myself and Barrie talking. It's about 25 minutes talking about that Deborah Tavares' report and also about his report. So we'll catch you after this. Okay, we'd like to introduce Barrie Trower. We've had Barrie on the show before, and Barrie is an independent scientist and expert witness regarding Wi-Fi technology and microwave warfare. Now, we sent over Barrie a document from Deborah Tavares regarding new technology that the American government are releasing. So we asked Barrie to have a look at this technology. We ourselves didn't know much about it. We're not that advanced in that technology. And as this is more Barry's background, we've asked Barrie to have a look at this and get his opinion on it. Good evening, Barrie. How are you doing?
Hello, sir. Thank you very much for calling me.
No problem at all. Thanks for doing this, Barrie. Deborah was on our show a couple of weeks ago, and she sent us over the information, this document, and she's concerned about this technology that was on I believe, on the White House government website. And so we printed out a copy and we sent it over to you to have a look at. Obviously, you had the chance to have a look at it. Can you tell me what you think? Were your first impressions of the information?
I'm going to upset a few people, sir, by telling the truth here. It was written by U.S. scientists, and the title of the document is to spur economic growth. In fact, they say here, will increase investment dollars. Now, I'm going to take you back to 1976, when this level of radiation was known by the United States research scientists to cause up to 4,500 different illnesses in human beings, depending on stage of growth and state of health. And it was also corroborated by the United Nations. And in 1976, this level of radiation was marked, basically, the documents concerning the ill health effects from it were marked top secret. And the United States scientists sent a report out to the rest of the world, mainly Western governments at that time, and to paraphrase their sentence, what it actually says is that governments must lie to the general populations, otherwise they will realize the ill effects caused by this level of radiation, and it will have a massive impact on industrial profit, and of course avoid lawsuits. So what they did is they decided to keep everything secret and lie to the people over the dangers of this level of radiation. And in fact, they're still doing what they set out to do in 1976, when all this was marked secret, whereby, by their own writing, they say it will spur economic growth and increase industrial profit. So they are still maintaining that this is safe against their own research, and this entire episode, this entire industry, is to make money on the ill health of the populations.
That's incredible. I mean, that really ties into the whole pharmaceutical side of things, where you have to get tablets, and obviously, alternative medicines. They actually, the likes of the cannabis oil and various other treatments that can be used for cancer, they won't let people use them, or they make things illegal, or they take them off the market because they want to sell the drugs.
Well, you're absolutely correct here, sir, because when I looked at this economic growth and will increase profit, you're actually talking, I would think, of about 1/100% of the country will become immensely rich from this new technology, but most of the rest of the population, certainly a half of the children exposed, will become quite sick, in fact very sick, and some of them will die. And of course all of that requires medicines and time off work, and the rest of the population will actually become poorer, whilst you have just these very few, and the people in power here, becoming super rich. So you're absolutely correct, sir.
Well, the one thing that Deborah has regarding her document, it does say on the document, is this technology safe? It's meant to spur economic growth, but will it do that?
No, sir. As I said, it is certainly not safe, and in fact, I know you're going to come to it later, but a paper which is free of charge I am publishing later this week. If I'm using the best US scientists' data and the English scientists and the World Health Organization's data, we know that at this particular frequency, on these wavelengths that they're using, 57.7% of pregnant women will suffer miscarriages, stillbirths, or genetically mutated children. So it's certainly not safe, sir, and these are their figures, not mine.
That's scary information, Barry. Very scary information, especially next generation. If the actual technology affects our genes, and that's passed on through generations, then we are going to have major issues in the next generation and the generation after that.
Oh, absolutely, sir, absolutely. And it's already started showing. I gave a lecture not too long ago at Brighton University, and one of the professors there, he actually said that this phenomenon now is already showing itself in other mammalian species. Again, in Ireland, over there, I presented my paper, which is coming up. I mentioned my paper, or I referenced my paper to the Irish Doctors Association, who are recognized worldwide for being incredibly clever. So, I mean, this was discussed fully. So it is known, it is recognized, and the technology is not being challenged. It can't be challenged because it's actually there on the scientific peer-reviewed documents that the US government and the World Health Organization actually say is going to happen. What we're doing here is we are making a massive profit for a few people on the backs of suffering of the populations, as you say, in the next 2, 3, 4 generations.
It is very scary. Now, obviously, we're going to talk about, is Wi-Fi safe? I mean, what Deborah's document has, but generally we talk about Wi-Fi, and it's linked to Wi-Fi, so, I mean, is it safe? I mean, I think we're pretty sure we can pretty much say that it's not.
No, sir. Wi-Fi is particularly dangerous to children, and it is particularly dangerous to pregnant women. And there are several papers published on the frequencies to do with Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi-enabled frequencies, as this is. The first is that it can induce the autoimmune system of the brain to go into action, which can actually cause Graves' disease, or which is a neurological state which is detrimental to children. The other pulse frequencies related to microwave radiation are feelings where you cannot relax, feeling of being unhappy, and it can, if you're super sensitive to it, it can cause problems with anger and manic behavior, and even problems with movement and loss of appetite, things like that. And these are published. These are well-published frequencies, or pulse frequencies, modulation frequencies, that parents are already reporting from children in schools with Wi-Fi.
It's something that I try to address in my local school, my son's school. Barry tried to educate I mentioned it in the parents' meeting regarding the dangers of Wi-Fi. But, you know, you just get that kind of blank look, and you kind of... they just don't seem to understand, because the government, it's been approved by the government, they assume that everything's okay.
Well, actually, they're wrong. It's not been approved by government. In fact, the European Parliament, and I've referenced this, and you'll have it next week, the European Parliament actually wrote, ban Wi-Fi from schools. For legal reasons, it had to be changed to a wired system is preferred, but the meaning is the same, and many of the world's leading scientists, in professors in many countries, have said why Wi-Fi must not be allowed near children. And the problem we have with schools is twofold. The first is that when Ofsted, and this again isn't from me, it is from a professor. I gave a lecture at a university, and a professor said, I'll tell you what the problem is, Barry. She said, when the inspectors come into schools, the government inspectors, They have to tick boxes, like Ofsted. They tick boxes, and schools are terrified of not having that sentence that says this is a technically advanced developing school with excellence and all that. Now, if you don't have Wi-Fi and all of these interactive things that you can touch, you don't get ticks in boxes. And this is one of the things that schools are afraid of. And the other thing, of course, is the legality of whoever signs the paper. And it's usually the chair of governors or the principal, because Wi-Fi actually has no safety certificate, and there is no insurance. So what they're now facing, and why they're afraid of it, and why they refer back to the government, is because they can face super lawsuits over the injuries to children. And I know two, one where the signatory of a document is being sued for £5.2 million, and the other where 18 families are suing. And, you know, when it comes to children, and you will probably find the insurance companies, on the advice of Lloyd's about 13 years ago, put a little exclusion clause in. You will find if there is no insurance, then it is your house, your land, your car that people are going to go for. And so, you know, they're in the catch-22, and they've painted themselves into a corner.
It's incredible what they're coming out. I mean, obviously we've heard of Agenda 21, which has been rolled out in so many countries now. The one thing that Deborah was talking about regarding technology that she'd come across from the White House website is the fact that they want to use Wi-Fi as a mesh network and have this mesh network right across, and they can track and trace everything with this mesh network. Is that something that you've come across?
Oh yes, I mean, it's no secret. The US have a supercomputer that can actually, it's something like 1,000,000 billion computations a second, and it can actually store and log, if that is what they want to do, every single conversation used on Wi-Fi and cell phones and any other microwave device in the world, and they can keep that and store it. And in fact, I think they actually said they are doing that not too long ago. So, I mean, information for governments is power, and it can be used many ways, many ways. It can be used to help people, but it can also be used to quieten people down and be used for blackmail. So if everything that you ever say, do, or touch is now being stored on computers by governments, they're not storing it for their health. They are storing it for their own use. Forever, whatever they want to do with it.
Well, we had the whistleblower Edward Snowden, who has come out regarding the NSA and all what they've been doing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when you mesh our whole block and a whole street, there is nothing you can do, say, go, that cannot be logged. Your movements they can even know and see you when you go to the toilet if they want to. They can see you in the bath. They can hear what you're saying everywhere, you know, all day. It is absolute, total observation of populations.
And, I mean, is there a solution to this, Barry? Is there any way is there anything we can do we won't be able to get rid of it completely, but is there anything that we can do to reduce them being able to do that?
Well, the problem is, the people who have the power to do this, I mean, putting it simply, you are up against, first, the most powerful industry on the planet. It has the governments and the secret services in bed with it, along with the electricity generating boards and the pharmaceutical industry. So you're up against the biggest people on the planet. Whether the ordinary person can do something about it, I am hoping so, because and the problem isn't just Ireland and the United States. It is worldwide, and I'm not boasting here, sir. And I make no money from this. My paper is free, but the paper I have just written, which is all peer-reviewed, published references, it has already been requested by over 250,000 people worldwide with this same concern. So we may have some very powerful people suddenly sort of turning this around and saying, we will do this and this, but not this and this. So I'm hoping that the world will come to its senses once this paper is out.
Well, that's the next thing that we're going to talk about, actually. Was this paper that we talked about on the phone last week, and one of the things that we're happy to do, and you said you don't mind if we do this for you as well, is that when you send us a copy to OYM, what we'll do is we'll digitize it and we'll put it up and make it available on the OYM website for people to download and to read. We really appreciate you putting all the time into this and making it available for free for educating people. So thanks for doing that, Barrie.
In fact, it was your decision, sir. When I say your, in April, I was asked to be a speaker at the annual conference of the Irish Doctors Association, and as I said, they are renowned worldwide, really, for being incredibly clever. And they have links all over the world. And the basis of this paper, the effect of basically Wi-Fi on girls from the age of 5 to when they're pregnant women. And one of the doctors, I spoke Saturday afternoon very early. I answered questions Saturday afternoon. They block-booked a restaurant where the questions carried on. And then they asked me to answer questions all day Sunday from 11 o'clock till 4. So, I mean, they really went into this. And one of the doctors said, you really must put this into a document. So I'm really following your doctor's request, and I've put it into a document. It is free of charge and available to anybody in the world. And, of course, if you put it on your website and people come to you, they can download it and take it away and read it. And I'm hoping it is good enough to be used in a legal case anywhere in the world.
Well, that's going to be brilliant. We're going to need that, because we need to stop this rollout of Wi-Fi, and obviously the smart meters as well, and now the water meters over here in Ireland, which I believe are going to be Wi-Fi also.
Yeah, could I just suggest one thing here, sir?
Yeah.
Without insulting your intelligence or the intelligence of your doctors, I always write my research papers so that they can be understood by an 11-year-old child. So any of the young adults listening to you, if they think I would never understand a research paper, this one you will. And I've had an expert graphic artist do a picture as well to explain if there are words you don't understand, they'll be in a drawing. But it should be understandable by an 11-year-old who has not studied science.
Fantastic. Well, what we'll do is, obviously, I know you're going to get it over to us. I know you said you have the envelope ready to go. When we get it, we will obviously have a read of it, and then if anybody wants to, when it's ready to download, if they're not sure of something, they can obviously contact us through email, and if we can answer the question from our knowledge, we'll be happy to do that. Otherwise, we can give you a shout, I'm sure, if you don't mind, just to clarify something. But as you say, you've made it in a way that it's easy for the general population to actually understand, which is great.
Yeah, and you can invite me back onto your program, sir, with anyone from anywhere in the world with questions, and I'll happily be a guest again, free of charge, and answer all of the questions.
Well, that's what we're going to organise with you, Barry, shortly. We're going to be talking about that shortly. We're going to be getting you on. I think we have talked about a date. But for people who want to tune in and to OYM Radio, Barry has been on the show twice before. And the podcasts are available for free. You just have to register for free on the site and download the podcast and hear Barry's 2 interviews that we did. We're hoping to get Barry on again in a few weeks' time to get an update on what's been going on. And I'd just like to thank Barry. This is just a quick interview regarding the information that Deborah Tavares sent us over that we wanted to clarify, and obviously the release of the new document that Barry's going to be doing. So we will be getting Barry on, as I said, in a few weeks' time, and we'll have a much more longer interview to talk about this technology. I'd just like to thank Barry for just letting us do the interview, because I know you're a very busy man, Barry. I know last week you had a camera crew in your house, and you're a man in demand. So a big thank you from OYM and all the listeners in OYM, and we will be in touch regarding the interview in a few weeks' time.
Yep. I will be posting it to you I'm picking it up Tuesday. I've got to check it again, finally. I'm hoping to get it into the post Wednesday or Thursday. I suspect it's 3 or 4 days to Ireland, so you should be there Monday.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, Barry, just stay with us there for a minute, and we should be back after this.
Join UnitedWeStrike.com radio on the second Saturday of every month for our live International Radio Marathon. Don't buy, don't comply, ask why.
Okay, don't buy, don't comply, ask why. Yeah, good information there from Barry Trower. Just reading some of the comments on the chat, and maybe not everyone would be in agreement with what Barry says. Well, maybe, I'm not saying I disbelieve. I'm not saying what he says is 100%. I don't know, but all I know is that he was commissioned to do a report for the government in the UK. So obviously, someone thinks he's credible at what he does, and he has shared some good information with us and also the world. So I have the utmost respect for the man, and. Well, what more can I say? If you're not convinced of what he says, do the research. I firmly believe in switching off the Wi-Fi. I believe it is harmful. We've seen evidence.
Definitely so, and we've obviously done the seminar with Walter Graham to explain the dangers of Wi-Fi and all the documentation and the facts supporting the dangers of Wi-Fi and what can happen. Now, as Barry said, the document, he's going to get the document over to me next week sometime, so when we get that in the post, we will digitise that and get it on the site for people to access. And also, Barry's going to be on the show on the 1st of September. Well, I spoke to Barry after the interview, and we booked in a time, 1st of September. So if you want to hear more of what Barry has to say about this, 57% of the next generation of girls will be sterile because of Wi-Fi technology and wireless technology. That's frightening to think that that's going to be. And because it's generic, that will go through your genes and pass on to the next generation.
Yeah. Did we inadvertently, at some point in time, maybe our forefathers, sign up to this and say we give future governments the God-given right, or the right, maybe we take the God-given, but the right to run experiments that may affect the population of the world for generations to come? Who has the right to do that?
Well, I'd like to, when I said to Barry about, the government, because the government approved it, and he said, well, actually, it's not approved.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get the documentation, plus the cases he talked about people actually bringing the companies to court. Now, I did hear about Lloyd's of London having a get-out clause. Now, they will insure anything. Seriously, they will insure anything. But the one thing they don't insure is mobile phone technology, wireless technology, because they know there's something wrong with it. That's why. Anyway, Barry's going to be on the 1st of September. So if you have any questions for Barry, you want to tune in and get more information, please do. I did send over the podcast over to Deborah Tavares, so she can actually play that, and if she's in a radio show, she can play it on a radio show as well. We just did that earlier today with Barry, so that's fresh off the podcaster, you should say. we could say. Now, obviously, the last few days, I've kind of been involved in looking at this pole shift information. And I know there's people out there going, well, it's all kind of fear-mongering and everything else. I don't really see it. It depends on your perception of it. I don't see it as fear-mongering. I see it as information. I see it for what it is. And I see, some good YouTube channels, people talking about it with some scientific information. And then I see some nutters on YouTube as well. And obviously you're going to get both sides of this. So I'm doing a kind of cross-section, have a look at what's going on. And I thought it would be a good idea to get somebody on just to kind of give us a heads up on what, they think is going on. So next week, we are going to have a guy on called Gordon James Ganinoto, I think his name. And he's been on Coast to Coast. He's been on a lot of the alternative media radio stations talking about this. He's done obviously a lot of research into this. He's an attorney, artist. And I believe he's an ET contactee as well. But we won't hold that against him. And we'll speak to Gordon about it, and we find out and get his opinion on what he thinks is going on. And so, if there's any questions you have regarding, the pole shift and what's going on, I mean, I think we can all definitely say, well, I don't know, myself and Steve have been talking about this off air, and we're looking up at the sky and think something's not right, either with the sun or the moon, or just, it's. I don't know, just things are not right.
Well, where was the moon the past couple of nights? That's what I want to know.
2 nights in a row, we didn't see the moon, and it wasn't because of cloud cover. We were looking out, couldn't find it, and people have said that the moon has shifted within a short period of time. 1 minute it's one part of the sky, next minute it's in another. Now, apparently the wobble effect of the Earth is getting worse, which is called the Chandler effect. And this wobble effect is getting worse. So, and they're talking about CMEs, and they're talking about EMPs happening, and coronal mass ejections, and EMPs, which is the electromechanical pulse, I think, is it? I think that's what
you're
EMP
looking at me.
for.
Yeah. EMP.
Transfer, you're back up there. EMPs, anyway, which apparently, if it does hit the planet, it's going to knock out the grid for a long period of time. Now, for people who are preppers, I recommend, look, there's no harm prepping and getting some food in and all bits and pieces in, and if nothing ever happens, right, then don't worry about it. Just use the food, no big deal. You save a couple of quid, right? But as my brother-in-law used to always say, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it if something happens. All right, so, at least have a month's worth of food in and have, certain supplies, because at least if you have that and something happens, then at least you're covered for that period of time.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And there's absolutely no harm in having a little stockpile of non-perishables, sitting in a cupboard if you can, just in case. I mean, never mind talking about pole shifts or planets or anything like that, but just, do you remember there a couple of weeks back, the buses went on strike. A lot of people, especially kind of out this neck of the woods, kind of rural transport, people depend on buses. And, I believe there's a talk of another bus strike that's going to be happening. It's supposed to be on the cards again. And, people who depend on buses who can't get to shops, because some of the villages around where we are, they actually don't have well-stocked local shops. You might have a little mom-and-pop kind of store with basic necessities, but if there's no buses, you can't get into the major towns or the major arteries. So it's always kind of handy, to have a little stockpile. Tin goods is always good.
Yeah. I mean, years ago when I was a kid, I remember years ago when everything did shut down at Christmas for the 3 days. And it was like in, I don't know, as if World War II broke out in the house, because the mother would go and she'd buy up. She'd have enough stock for about a week, if not 2 weeks. And we only, everything just shut down for 3 days. But yeah, she was buying everything. So you can just imagine if something like that happens. Now, we know with the planet that, that Tesco's truck that brings the food to Tesco's on a daily basis, that can't keep happening. I mean, I'm sure our listeners can appreciate that. it can't keep happening because we keep taking resources time and time again from the planet. You know, we're knocking down the rainforests, and we're just destroying the planet. And then obviously with the Fukushima, what's going on over there, I mean, that's unbelievable what's happening to the wildlife. Not only are we having dead fish, but we're having fish that are being born that have all these things wrong with them. And it's just affecting all the life in the sea and everything else. Plus obviously all the chemtrails that we're being sprayed with and everything. So something's got to give. It's like an elastic band, and something's got to give. Now, we don't know, you know, if this happens, if the pole shift happens, which apparently has happened 4 or 5 times before, it's a normal occurrence. We have Planet X coming in. People down the southern hemisphere have seen and taken photos of this celestial body coming in. And there's a guy on YouTube called Maverick Star who seems to be doing a lot of research and a lot of looking up at the charts from a scientific point of view, not just guessing. So I tend to have a look at his, Maverick Star is his name, on YouTube, just to see what he's saying. But there's a host of others as well. Marshall Masters is another chap who has a group of people who is looking at this as well.
I said this last week. Eminem,
yeah. And so there's a lot of information out there. Again, you know, a bit of discernment, have a look, and, you know, check it out for yourselves. But look, you're better off having something. Be prepared in as much as you can. We don't know. There's a couple of maps out there saying that if the poles do change, what will happen is there's going to be, in certain areas of the planet, there's going to be an increase of land. That land will come up and land will go down. Unfortunately, they're saying, and I'm just saying this from what they're saying, I'm not saying it's going to happen or whatever, but I'm just saying what they're saying, is that Ireland will drop about 150 feet to 200 feet. Okay? So if you're living on the coast and you're under 150 feet, 200 feet, just look for, I mean, if a tsunami comes in, you know yourself, you'll only have minutes, and you want to be a fast runner to get up a mountain. But there's 2 maps out there. One is Edgar Casey. Now, for people who know Edgar Casey, he was a prophet in the 30s, and he predicted a lot of things, and there's even a library full of all his predictions. And he's a map out there what he feels will happen with this pole shift. There's another map out there that you can Google, and the chap's name is George Michael Scallon.
The singer?
No relation. And George Michael Scallon also has a map on his predictions of what's going to happen. As I say, some land is going to come up, some land is going to go down. Now, if you look at what's happening globally around the planet, there's climate changes going on, which is unbelievable. Now, you won't get this on the mainstream. You're going to have to go on the internet. You're going to have to do the research. But there's droughts, there's flooding, there's snow where there shouldn't be snow. There's so many things going on. And you're not going to hear this, guys. So you need to go out on the YouTube, start looking at the alternative news, different stations, local news channels in different countries, like over in India, Pakistan, parts of America. There's things going on, and so there's something definitely going on with the climate. And as I say, it's just part of being prepared. I don't know. I mean, maybe Ireland, a tsunami might hit Ireland and just completely wipe the island out. I remember saying this ages ago, something in the Catholic religion where Ireland will go underwater. Some prediction. It wasn't a Fatima prediction, but there was something. But something on the Fatima prediction said something, hail and brimstone coming from the sky. And hail and brimstone could be the meteors, could be the tail end of Planet X and the solar system that's coming in. There's a lot of astronomers down in Australia now at the moment, and they're watching the solar system coming in. People kind of agree, or they might, they have an argument based on when it's going to happen. Now, there was a whistleblower out there, I'm sure you found out, I'm sure you know her name. Her name's Patty Brazard, who apparently worked for NASA, and there's a number of interviews that she's done, and she talks about what she feels is going to happen. And she talks about from the 17th of August to the 26th of September. I don't know, and neither does Steve. But all I'm saying is, it's best to be informed, and if nothing happens, fine, no problem at all. But if something happens, at least you know what's happening and you can prepare as much as you can. As I say, there's only so much that you can do. That's it. She's saying that you should be able to go underground, at least 3 feet underground, because of what's going to happen, what's going to come from the sky, but also when the protection around the earth goes, the UV rays that are going to come down will act like a microwave and we're going to be cooked. Okay, so not good news, but, I don't know, maybe some people might be fortunate they will be able to go somewhere that they can hide in a cave or in a building that you can go underground. So that's why I'm kind of putting it out there. It's interesting, but again, it's just a bit of research, really.
Yeah, there's a comment there from Whelan. If Planet X is for real, what can we do realistically? Nothing, or very, very little, I contend. I actually agree with that, and that's something that we discussed there. Alan and I discussed. Could have been last week or Jordan the week. I can't remember. But I mean, yeah, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, and there's not a whole hell of a lot we can do about it. But and this is kind of where Alan and I, like Alan, he says, have the food store and all, and I agree with that to a point. But if the planet's going to be hit by something, and 90% or a large proportion of people are going, well, we could be all killed, put it that way. But if the majority of the people on the planet are going to be wiped out, well, then it's just kind of whatever people are left, it's going to be dog eat dog. It's going to be kill or be killed. And I think it's just a matter of time, because if this thing does happen, then let's say you have the biggest food store, well then you're going to be fighting off your neighbours who are coming to get your food. So you're going to be on red alert 24/7. And after the food runs out, if the planet is devastated and barren and nothing's going to grow, well, you're just going to buy in time, really.
Well, this is what they're saying. This is why it's going to be important. Community is going to be more important than ever if this happens. John Irwin, we've talked to John Irwin about this, and John said it will go back to the law of the jungle. If a man is hungry and he needs to feed his kids and you've got food, he'll kill you for it. So the only way you can at least try and reduce this is to have a community, have a group of people together that are working together to educate them to say, look, if we don't work together, then what's going to happen is there's going to be people coming in from the outside who are going to take our food. So we need to work together as a team to stop that from happening. So bit of a cough there. So it goes back to community. It goes back. So you need to be, as much as you can, connecting with like-minded people in your community who are open to this, to say, well, look, if this does go down, then what do you have and what do I have, and we have to work together, because that's the only way you're going to survive. The only other way, as I say, we don't really know for sure. Check out Edgar Casey's prophecies anyway on YouTube, and look up the maps for Edgar Casey. Look up the map for George Michael Scallon, and have a look yourself for safe locations. But that's no guarantee. These maps are no guarantee, right? They're the prophecy, and you just don't know. Just imagine, if you have a bat full of water and you pull it from one end and then push it to the other, the water goes out like a tsunami and then comes rushing back because you've moved it from side to side. Well, imagine a tsunami like that coming on the west coast of Ireland, right across Ireland, and 200 or 300 miles high. I mean, we don't know what the effect of it will be. But, as I say, if you have different levels, the certain levels, Steve will say, if we're going to be microwaved or killed by asteroids, then storing your food ain't going to make a difference, unless you can get underground. It really depends on, what resources you have around you and what people you have around you. That's it. And we know money's tight. People have very little money, if any, to buy food. But I don't know. I've no answers. All I can say is do your own research and check it out yourself. That's probably the best thing you can do. But we will talk more information with Gordon James Gonanoto next week. We're going to be talking more in depth, and I know Gordon accepts the fact that I think he's happy to say that if there is an asteroid, he'll walk in front of one, because he doesn't have the resources himself to do it, as far as I know. But we'll get more information on that.
Yeah, I think we're going to need Superman to come along and move that asteroid for us.
We're going to need Superman. Yeah, we have to start praying for Superman, or maybe global meditation might stop this from happening. Maybe something like that. But so there you go. By the way, I suppose just reminding people about donations and funding as well. We just happen to have our OYM printer go down earlier today, so we don't have any scripts for shooting from the hip. So, as I say, it takes money to keep things going. So if you can afford it, a couple of quid, that'd be great. If you don't have any money, if there's any ads on the website that you like, click on them. And all that, little cents helps and adds to help support OYM. And that's really, that's all I can say, really. All I can say is, have a good week and stay safe. If there's any news or any links, thanks for all the links, by the way, for people sending in the links. We do send out web links once a week, and we take the kind of best ones, or we feel the ones that are relevant, and then we send them out, because we don't want to bombard you with too many links. But we just find the ones that are kind of relevant to what we're dealing with. We put them on the old email and send them out there. But if there's any information, now there is information I have regarding an email I got a bit late now to read it out, regarding an issue with, let me just call it up here, and I might talk about it next week. It was got to do with missing persons, Malcolm MacArthur. It's got to do with, I think it's gone off there. A paedophile ring is operating in the southeast region of the Republic of Ireland. Upper class killer Malcolm MacArthur. Now we have information about this. It was sent in to us by one of our listeners. This is going back a few years. Article from the Irish Independent website, 26th of April 2002. So it's actually in the Irish Independent. Maybe we'll touch base with that next week and talk about it, because it was sent in. We asked people if they had any information, so it was in the Irish Indo. If people remember any information about it, it was got to do with Malcolm MacArthur and Irish Attorney General Patrick Connolly. So we might mention that on next week's show. We have time. But now we are out of time, so all I say, have a good week, stay safe. Thanks for all your support and tuning in. And this is Alan James saying good night.
Did you actually take a breath at all there?
I did.
Fair play to you. Yeah, all I can do is echo Alan's sentiments. It's been a good show, and we should be finishing on a positive note, so we shouldn't, as Chris says there, sweet J, lads, finish on a bright note. Okay. We're all going to be here next week, hopefully. The sun will be shining, hopefully. And we just had Abby Martin on the show. Abby Martin, Alan. Abby Martin.
There you go. That's a good way to finish the show.
That is a good way.
It?
So just Google Abby Martin and listen to the show again.
By the way, I'll just quickly say, we think the cabal is on the run. It's a trap to that. A lot of information is saying that the cabal is on the run, and they're Obama and George Bush warrants for sent out, global warrants for sent out for their arrest because they're war criminals. So it looks like there's good news and things are on the up. So fingers crossed. Keep it going.
If anyone out there can do a song about that, I think there was a song maybe to do a little parody. Band on the Run.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cabal on the Run. Okay. Good night. We're over time, so we'll do it all again next week. Take care. From myself, Stephen George. A very good evening.
Open your mind.